Jungkook sensed something was wrong that night. Days later, a CCTV recording revealed the person who secretly saved him from a deadly obsession. "Don't move." The voice was low, cold, right behind him. Jungkook froze, his breath caught in his throat as the world around him fell silent, save for the soft hiss of wind rustling through the trees. The faint glow of the street lamp overhead flickered, once, twice, before casting the alley into a deeper kind of darkness. Something was off. Every cell in his body screamed run, but his legs wouldn't move, his hand clenched tighter around his phone, his thumb trembling above the emergency call button he hadn't dared to press, yet he'd felt it for the past 15 minutes. A presence. Subtle at first, like a pair of eyes brushing over his skin. But the longer he walked, the stronger it became, until now it was undeniable. He wasn't alone. Slowly, he turned. There, at the mouth of the alley, stood a woman. She wore a surgical mask, her hoodie pulled over her head. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, wide, unblinking, and fixated on him with a feverish intensity. "I've followed you since the airport," she whispered. "You don't know how hard it was not to touch you then." Jungkook's breath hitched. "Who are you?" She took a step forward. "You smiled at me, Jungkook." That meant something. It had to mean something. His heart thundered in his chest as he stepped back. Not now. Not like this. No security, no fans, no manager. Just him and her, and something cold glinting in her hand. He didn't have time to think. But before she could take another step, a shadow moved from behind the dumpster. Swift, silent, lethal. In a flash, the woman was on the ground. Her weapon kicked meters away. "Don't touch him." The voice cut through the tension like a knife. Calm, controlled. Jungkook stumbled backward, stunned, as the figure emerged from the darkness and stood over the woman's struggling form. Black hoodie, black mask. One eye briefly glinted from beneath the fabric as the man glanced Jungkook's way. "Go home," he said. "Wait." But the stranger was already moving, dragging the woman away into the shadows like he'd never been there. Within seconds, the alley was empty again, just the wind and Jungkook's breath, ragged and loud in his ears. For days, Jungkook tried to make sense of what had happened. He never spoke of it to anyone. Not his members, not his manager, not even Taehyung, though he wanted to. Something about the encounter unsettled him. Not just the woman, not just her words, but the way the masked man had appeared and vanished like smoke that he scoured social media. Nothing. No news, no fan accounts posting about the incident. Not even whispers of a security breach. It was like it had never happened. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching him. "Hey, are you okay?" Taehyung's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. They were sitting backstage before rehearsals, the others chattering quietly in the background. Jungkook looked up. "Yeah, just tired." Taehyung studied him. "You've been tired a lot lately." Jungkook offered a weak smile. "Too much in my head." Taehyung didn't push. He never did, but he didn't look away either. And that was the thing about Taehyung. He saw things, more than he let on. That night, Jungkook came home to his apartment building and noticed something strange. The door to the security office was open. Curious, he stepped inside. The night guard was dozing off in his chair, CCTV screens glowing above him. One of the screens, camera 12, showed the alley behind the building. The same alley from a few nights ago. Jungkook's heart stopped. The footage was dated the same night he'd been followed, that he leaned closer, watching as a hooded figure, himself, walked down the alley. Then came the woman, and then there a man in black, leaping from the shadows. That IT was all there, caught in eerie grayscale. The swift movements, the takedown, the confrontation. But what stopped Jungkook cold was the moment the man looked directly into the camera and he knew that face. Even partially obscured by a mask, even in grainy footage, he knew those eyes. "Taehyung," he whispered. He staggered back, his breath shallow, memories flooding him. The quiet glances, the way Taehyung had been acting recently, always nearby, always watching. And suddenly, it all made sense. Taehyung had known. Taehyung had been there that he hadn't told anyone. Not even Jungkook. But why? Jungkook didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, debating whether to call him, text him, confront him, but another part of him was afraid. Not of Taehyung, but of what else Taehyung might be hiding. Because if he had saved Jungkook once, how many other times had he done so without Jungkook ever knowing? And what would drive someone, even a best friend, to go that far in secret? Jungkook presses back to the wall, fingers clutching the edge of the security monitor as the final frame of the CCTV footage burned into his mind. Taehyung in no doubt. It was him, but it wasn't the version of Taehyung he knew. The playful, soft-spoken artist who teased him with inside jokes and thoughtful stares. The man in the footage moved like a shadow, trained to disappear. Every step calculated, every hit precise. A version of Taehyung Jungkook had never seen before, and that terrified him. "Are you sure it was him?" Jimin asked, lowering his voice to a whisper. They were in the practice room the next day, stretching while the rest of the team filtered in. Jungkook nodded, eyes focused on the floor. "Positive." Jimin hesitated. "Did you talk to him?" "No. I don't know how." There was a pause. Maybe he had a reason. That's what I'm afraid of. That night, Jungkook lay in bed, the blue light of his phone washing over his face. The CCTV footage kept looping in his head like a scene from a thriller movie. He thought about Taehyung's strange behavior the past few weeks. How he was always around, always alert, even when everyone else was relaxed. Had he always been watching? Was this the only time? He tapped on Taehyung's name in his contact list, thumb hovering above the call button. Then he stopped. The doorbell rang. Jungkook sat up straight, heart kicking into overdrive. It was midnight. No one should be at his door. He approached slowly, silently, grabbing a baseball bat from beside his dresser. He checked the peephole. Nothing. No movement in the hallway. No sound. Then ding-dong. Again, and this time a piece of paper slid under the door. Jungkook crouched and picked it up with trembling fingers. "You're not safe." Scrawled in sharp, frantic handwriting. "He can't protect you forever." A chill gripped his spine that he didn't sleep. The next morning, he walked into the studio with bags under his eyes and silence on his lips. Taehyung was already there, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a sketch pad. His expression was unreadable, but the moment Jungkook entered, Taehyung looked up and paused. Their eyes met. Something flickered behind Taehyung's gaze. A crack, a warning. "You okay?" he asked. Jungkook hesitated. "Did you come to my place last night?" Taehyung's face didn't change. "No." "What?" There was a note. Someone was watching. Taehyung didn't respond immediately. Then he stood, slowly, and walked toward him. "Do you still have the note?" he asked quietly. Jungkook handed it over. Taehyung read it once, twice, then folded it neatly and tucked it into his back pocket. "Whoever left this knows things they shouldn't." "Like what?" "Like me," Taehyung said, almost to himself. Before Jungkook could ask more, their manager burst in. Practice was starting. The moment passed, but Taehyung's silence clung to the air like smoke. Later that evening, Jungkook followed him, but he knew it was risky. But he had to know the truth. Taehyung left the dorm around 11 p.m., wearing a hoodie and a mask. Not unusual, except for the speed in his stride and the way he kept checking over his shoulder. Jungkook kept his distance, heart hammering as they wound through alleyways, past shuttered storefronts, and into a dim side street he didn't recognize. Taehyung stopped, and then he knocked on a metal door. A slot opened. Someone inside scanned him before unlocking it. Jungkook crept closer, heart in his throat, and peeked through the closing door just in time to see a wall lined with photos of him. Dozens. Candid. Rehearsals. Interviews. Shots from airports. A few were torn. A few had red circles drawn over his face. And in the center, a single photograph of Jungkook sleeping in his car. He gasped, too loud. The door snapped open, and Taehyung was standing there, face exposed, expression unreadable. "Why are you following me, Jungkook?" The street felt suddenly too quiet, the shadows too deep. For a long moment, neither of them moved. "I saw the CCTV," Jungkook finally whispered. "You saved me. Why didn't you tell me?" Taehyung didn't answer. Instead, he stepped aside, opening the door wider. "You should see this," he said. "You need to." Against every warning bell in his head, Jungkook stepped in. The room was dark except for a single overhead bulb. Along with the wall of photos, there were files, stacks of them, on a nearby table. Police reports, background checks, and fan accounts. This girl, Taehyung said, pointing to a picture of the woman from the alley, was a Saesing. Real name's Han Seo-yeon. She's been obsessed for years. Changed her name twice. Got a job cleaning at a hotel BTS once stayed at. Jungkook's stomach turned. "How did you get all this?" he asked. Taehyung didn't look at him. "I've been tracking her." "For how long?" Taehyung finally met his eyes. "Since before the Tokyo show. She almost got past security then. I didn't tell you because I thought it'd make you paranoid. I thought if I handled it quietly, it would go away." Jungkook stared at him. "You've been protecting me this whole time." Taehyung's expression was calm, but his voice cracked just slightly when he said, "I couldn't let anything happen to you." And then, before Jungkook could reply, the light overhead flickered. A sound came from the hallway to a creak. A whisper. Then the power went out. The lights snapped off with a hiss, plunging the room into thick darkness that Jungkook's breath caught. Taehyung. Silence. Then a low click. Taehyung had drawn a knife. Compact, tactical, clean. "Stay behind me," he murmured. "They found us." Jungkook barely had time to register the words before a loud crash echoed from the back of the building. Taehyung shoved Jungkook behind an overturned table, then moved like a shadow, knife glinting under faint emergency lights, flickering on .2 masked figures burst in. Neither was Han Seo-yeon, but they were her people. Fanatics, the kind who called themselves chosen. Delusional, dangerous. Taehyung took one down in seconds, his movements terrifyingly precise. Jungkook had never seen him like this. Controlled rage, sharp instincts. He wasn't just a performer. He was a protector who'd bled in silence. The second attacker lunged, this one with a stun baton. Taehyung faltered. Jungkook didn't think. He grabbed a steel rod from the floor and swung. The crack echoed like thunder. The man crumpled, blood on Jungkook's hands. Real, warm, shocking, and in that moment, everything changed. They didn't go to the police. Taehyung said it was deeper than that. They're part of a group. Seo-yeon isn't acting alone. He explained later, after they'd hidden the unconscious men and torched the building to erase everything. She believes she's chosen to be with you. And others, they believe her. Jungkook listened, silent, shaken. His world, the neat, controlled life of stages and cameras, had cracked open. He wasn't just being followed. He was being hunted by obsession. But worse than that was the realization that Taehyung had carried this alone. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jungkook's voice cracked. Taehyung looked at him, eyes hollow. "Because I didn't want to scare you. Because I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking at me now." Jungkook's anger dissolved. He realized Taehyung wasn't just hiding something. He was hurting. The way he'd moved, the information he'd gathered, the instinctive violence, it all came from somewhere. A past Jungkook didn't know. "What happened to you?" Jungkook asked. Taehyung hesitated. Then, "I wasn't always a singer." The next week blurred. Security was tightened. The agency kept the incident under wraps. The media didn't know. The other members suspected something, but said nothing. Jungkook couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that alley. That look in Taehyung's eyes that he started noticing more. Subtle nods, secret glances. He began to see what had been invisible before. The world wasn't safe. Not for someone like him. Fame was a glass wall, an obsession pressed against it with bloodied fingers. And Taehyung. He wasn't just a friend, he was the only reason Jungkook was still alive. But the danger wasn't over. Not even close, because one morning, a small package arrived in a return address. Inside, a single Polaroid of Jungkook sleeping in his bed, and on the back in red ink, "He can't protect you forever." The Polaroid trembled in Jungkook's hands. His own face stared back at him. Eyes closed, mouth slightly parted, unaware of the shutter click that had captured him mid-dream. The blinds had been drawn that night. His bedroom door locked. So how? He flipped the photo over again. The message in red ink bled slightly at the edges. "He can't protect you forever." Jungkook couldn't breathe. That he locked every door in the apartment, drew the curtains, shut off every light. Then he sat on the edge of his bed and stared into the darkness, heart hammering in his chest. He didn't call Taehyung. Not this time. Not because he didn't want to, but because deep down a new, more terrifying thought had rooted itself in his brain. What if Taehyung had brought this to him? Not intentionally, but through the secrets, the shadows, the silence, because now the line between protector and predator felt paper thin. Elsewhere, Han So-yeon watched the CCTV feed from her hideout, an abandoned photography studio outside the city. Her eyes were dry, unblinking as Jungkook moved across the screen. He was beautiful, vulnerable, just like she remembered. Her walls were covered in timelines, color-coded maps, printed transcripts of V lives, and interviews. She'd studied his voice patterns, matched his sleep cycles to performance dates, tracked his favorite convenience stores. Her obsession wasn't just love, it was a system. And to her, Taehyung was the virus in that system. He keeps pulling you away, she whispered, stroking the edge of a weathered Jungkook photo. But I'll make you see. You were always meant for me. Then she turned to the large mirror propped against the wall. Behind her reflection, faint outlines of cameras were embedded in the glass. She was watching everything. Back at the dorm, Jungkook broke. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. He was jumpy, angry. Every sound twisted into imagined threats. Taehyung found him in the rehearsal studio, sitting alone in the dark, hoodie pulled over his head. "Why didn't you tell me there were cameras in my apartment?" Jungkook asked without looking up. Taehyung froze. "What?" "This was taken while I was asleep." Jungkook held up the Polaroid. "She's been in my home." Taehyung took it, scanning the image silently. His jaw clenched. "I swept your place last week. Nothing showed up." "Well, she got it anyway." "She's escalating." Jungkook stood. His hands were shaking. "You don't get to act like this is normal. Like this is just some side mission you're on." Taehyung's eyes narrowed. "I'm trying to keep you alive." "Yeah? Then tell me the truth for once. Tell me what you're hiding." Taehyung looked like he wanted to say something, then stopped. "I can't." Jungkook laughed bitterly. "Then we're done." That night, Jungkook moved into a hotel under a fake name that he needed space. He needed clarity. But even there, he wasn't alone. T3:17 a.m. The phone in the room rang once, then stopped. He walked to the window, peeled back the curtain. Across the street, someone stood under the flickering neon sign of a closed cafe, face obscured, but holding something small. A Polaroid. Then the figure vanished into the night. The next morning, Jungkook woke to find an envelope slid under the hotel door. Inside were copies of journal pages, handwritten, spiraling, unhinged. One line repeated in blood-red ink. "You're safest when you're scared." And below that, "Tonight, I'm coming to show you the truth." Jungkook didn't leave the hotel room all day. He locked the door, blocked the peephole, checked every drawer, every air vent, every mirror. He turned off his phone, covered the windows, sat on the floor with his back against the bed, clutching the envelope of madness left at his door. "Tonight, I'm coming to show you the truth." The words echoed in his mind like a countdown that he didn't know if it was hours or minutes away, but it was coming, and he wasn't ready. Taehyung was losing his mind. Jungkook had cut contact, changed hotels, dropped off the grid. Even his manager didn't know where he was. Taehyung stood in the center of his room, the air thick with tension. His black coat lay across the bed. The Polaroid Jungkook had shown him sat on the desk. Mocking him, he'd promised himself this wouldn't happen again. He pulled out his phone, opened a folder labeled 7. It was a tracker, embedded discreetly in Jungkook's watch. A last resort, the screen pulsed red. Location found. Room 403. Grand Mare Hotel. Taehyung was out the door within seconds. IT started around 9 p.m. The hallway outside Jungkook's room fell silent. No footsteps, no sounds from the other rooms, not even the hum of vending machines. Then, click, the power in his room died. Blackness swallowed everything. Jungkook scrambled backward, breath ragged, heart pounding. The emergency light by the door flickered on. Then the doorknob turned. Slowly, smoothly. "Don't scream." It was her voice. Han So-yeon stepped inside, calm, almost graceful, like she'd done this 100 times. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, head tilted, as if she were walking into a date, not a crime. She wasn't holding a weapon. That made it worse. "I brought you something," she whispered, reaching into her bag. Jungkook backed into the corner. "Don't come any closer." She smiled. "You said that in my dream last night, but you held me anyway." "I never. You will remember," she said, pulling out another Polaroid and tossing it at his feet. "Because we've always been real." He looked down. It was a picture of him as a child, at a park, with his mother, his breath caught. "How do you? I was there," she said. "Long before you ever sang. I watched you grow up. I knew before the world did that you were mine." The lock suddenly shattered. The door burst open. Taehyung came in like a storm, gun raised, black coat flowing behind him. His presence filled the room with gravity. "Step away from him." Seo-yeon didn't flinch. "You're ruining his awakening." "Now," Taehyung said, voice ice, but before she could answer, she lunged. Not at Jungkook. Taehyung. Jungkook screamed. The room erupted. A flash, a shot. Seo-yeon stumbled back, hand clutching her side, but still smiling. "I warned you," she gasped. "You can't protect him from everything." Blood dripped onto the carpet. Then she collapsed. Jungkook stared at her body, frozen. Everything blurred. The lights, the walls, the sirens that echoed faintly in the distance. Taehyung lowered the gun, face unreadable. "Why do you have that?" Jungkook whispered. "Why do you even know how to do this?" Taehyung turned to him slowly. "Because this isn't the first time someone tried to take you from me." That sentence felt like a blade. Jungkook stared at him. "What does that mean?" And then, without warning, Taehyung smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "I've been protecting you for a long time, Jungkook. You just never knew from who." Jungkook followed Taehyung through an alley soaked in rain and secrets. They didn't speak. Not until they reached an old, unmarked door behind an abandoned flower shop on the city's outskirts. Taehyung punched in a code, 7 digits, too fast to see, and opened it down a sterile hallway. A silent hum. A locked steel door at the end. Taehyung turned. "You want the truth?" Jungkook nodded, heart slamming. "Then don't look away." Inside was a surveillance room. Dozens of monitors flickering with footage. Live feeds of dorms, studios, hotels, even his family's home. "What is this?" Jungkook's voice cracked. "I started this 2 years ago," Taehyung said. "After a fan poisoned your drink in Japan. No one knew. You collapsed backstage. They blamed exhaustion. I never. You were never supposed to." Taehyung sat down, rubbing his hands like the guilt was ink that wouldn't come off. "After that, I made a choice. I wasn't going to wait for help. I'd watch everything. Kill the threats before they touched you." Jungkook backed away. "You were spying on me. I was protecting you. But at what cost?" Jungkook's voice was barely a whisper. "My privacy? My trust?" Silence. Then a low buzz. One of the monitors flashed. Han Seo-yeon's body was gone. She disappeared from the morgue an hour ago. The nightmare wasn't over. That night, Jungkook returned home to a cold, quiet apartment on the kitchen table. A USB and a note. Just a single word written on tape. Truth. He plugged it into his laptop, hands shaking, video files. Labeled by dates, point 1 opened with grainy, handheld footage, recorded through a window. Of him, sleeping, laughing, crying. But the voice narrating the video wasn't Seo-yeon's, it was a man's. Calm, methodical. "I was supposed to be the one watching him," the voice said. "Not Taehyung." The last video was dated yesterday. It showed Taehyung dragging Seo-yeon's unconscious body into the woods, burying something. Not at a phone. The same phone that had recorded the tapes. Jungkook stared at the screen, mind unraveling. Had Taehyung known there was someone else behind this? Had he been protecting him or hiding him from the truth? A final message blinked onto the screen. "He isn't who you think he is." The sky was bleeding that a dull, gray-red hue hung over Seoul like a curtain waiting to fall. Jungkook stood at the edge of the forest where the GPS from the buried phone had led him. He could still hear the last line of the voice recording playing over and over in his head. "He isn't who you think he is." The truth had rotted everything sweet between them. He walked deeper into the woods. His boots sank into soft earth. The air smelled like wet leaves, smoke, and secrets. There, a small, disturbed patch of dirt. Jungkook dropped to his knees, dug with his bare hands. What he found wasn't a body. It was a box. Inside, Taehyung's old security badge from his pre-debut days. MI Unit 7, private security for high-profile cases, photos of other idols. Marked, watched, protected, and a journal, not Seoyeon's. Taehyung's. April 17th. The stalker was caught, but she wasn't the root, just another symptom. The system let this happen. No more. Not to him. Not to Jungkook. May 9th. He smiled today. Didn't know I intercepted the second letter. She's getting smarter. I'm getting tired. July 3rd. Jungkook asked if I was okay. Elite. But he noticed. He always notices. October 28th. I had to hurt someone. I didn't want to, but he was inside the dorm, pretending to be delivery staff. I watched him bleed. I watched Jungkook sleep. I'm becoming something I don't recognize. But he's still safe. That has to be enough. Jungkook's breath shook. Tears blur the words. Behind him, a soft voice. I wasn't supposed to let you see that. Taehyung stepped into the clearing, his hair damp, his expression unreadable. I asked you to trust me, he said quietly. You ran. You buried the truth. I buried the parts of me that could have broken you. Jungkook stood, fist clenched. Why didn't you just tell me? Because if you saw how far I'd gone, Taehyung's voice cracked, you wouldn't love me the same. Silence. Then Jungkook asked, not accusing, just broken. Did you kill anyone for me? Taehyung's answer came fast, heavy. Yes. The air turned to glass. I did it before it got to you. I gave them choices. They made the wrong ones. Jungkook's heart shattered, not from the violence, but from the loneliness behind those words. Taehyung hadn't just been his shadow, he'd been bleeding for him, alone, in the dark, for years. They stood in silence as wind rustled through the trees like whispered applause. Then Taehyung dropped to his knees, exhausted. Take it to the police, he murmured. I won't stop you. Jungkook looked down at him. The man who'd held a knife to save him, buried phones to protect him, and torn himself apart behind a smile that he reached down. Hold Taehyung up. I'm not going to the police, Jungkook said. But I'm not going to let you destroy yourself either. Taehyung looked at him, blinking. Why? Jungkook exhaled. Because if I've been living in a lie, it's only because you kept me alive long enough to wake up. Weeks later, CCTV footage leaked. Not all of it. Just enough to expose the stalker ring. The cover-ups. The systems that failed. Not enough to expose Taehyung. That part stayed in a locked hard drive, in Jungkook's drawer. Where would stay? The group went back on tour. The lights were brighter. The screams louder. But on the side of the stage, during soundcheck when no one else was looking, Jungkook would glance at Taehyung, and Taehyung would N-O words. Just the silent agreement of two men who had been to the edge of obsession, violence, and truth, and chosen to come back together. The end, or maybe just the beginning.